Welcome back to Hunting the Haunted here on the Paranormal Network, where we dissect and discuss famous, infamous, and not so well-known cases of hauntings, demonic possession, and UFO and Bigfoot sightings. I'm your co-host, Jason Hewlett. And this month, we're doing a little something different on the show, aren't we, Peter?
That's right, Jay. Peter Renn here. Today we're discussing one of the most profound active cases that I've investigated since I've been in Canada, which started in 2013. A client reached out to me. Her name is Charmain, and the investigation is called the Haunting in Harrison.
Thank you all for watching Hunting the Haunted, and I ask that if you enjoy our shows, please subscribe to our channel right now, like this video, and click on the bell, notified each time a new video goes up. Now back to the show. Well, Charmain, thanks for joining us to talk about this case. We figured it'd be nice to have the person who kind of was involved discuss it, along with Peter, who was the investigator. So how about you tell us a bit about what brought you to this house in Harrison?
Well, at that time, I was actually in Hope, and I pretty much exhausted everything that needed to be done there. There was nothing left to offer for myself and my 4 children at the time. And we were definitely looking for somewhere else to go. And my mom at the time, she was living in Agassiz, and we were actually just going out for a drive, seeing what we could find. And weirdly enough, this beautiful house on the beach had a big sign out front, and we literally pulled up out front, walked into the house, and there was a maintenance man, and we said, "Hey, is this for rent?"
And it was that easy.
It was that easy, which is weird, right? Because it's literally, I mean, what's the chances of having a house on the beach? Like, it's just absolutely gorgeous. The grounds were beautiful. Lots of, like, it was huge. You could have patio. We used to have Canada Day parties there. You could see the fireworks right on the beach. It was absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, I definitely felt, as soon as I went in there was some things that felt a little different. And I remember saying to the house, if you take care of me, I'll take care of you. We ended up in the house. So
And how soon after you moved in did sort of the activity start? Because I know, like, Peter's mentioned how active the place was, and you did too, and we talked about it in our book. So how long did it take for things to really get rolling?
It didn't take long at all. Even when we were bringing things in, my son would say, "Ooh, it just felt like something like, was pinching the back of my neck," and things like that. We noticed there was a lot of knocks on the door, doorbells ringing. You'd go to the door and there's absolutely nobody there. You'd get the sense that you were being watched because there was 2 places on the property. There was the main house, and then there was the cabin. And the cabin I thought would be perfect for the girls at the time because they were teenagers, and that gave them the chance to, be in their own place, but still access the house for groceries and not actually pay rent yet, but still have the independence, right? So there was 2 different things going on over there, and opposed to what was going on in the actual main house. But it did happen pretty much right away, because I think I tried to contact Peter within at least 6 weeks of being there. And usually I can take care of things like that myself, but this was just a little more heightened than what I'm accustomed to on a daily basis.
It sounded like it. And Peter, your team at the time, you guys couldn't get there right away, am I correct?
Yeah, it kind of broke into the back end of winter, and then we were there. We managed to get there in the new year. I think it was February or March 2013. What was interesting about the case, it was, as to what Charmain mentioned, it was kind of like a 2-sided coin. Like there was 2 buildings with 2 separate series of events and different experiences and that kind of thing. And what was profound about it was that we managed to validate a lot of the reports that Charmain mentioned to us about what was going on in there as well.
Now, and it was quite different. I know, Charmain, when you were describing it first, that the outbuilding where your girls live was almost darker than the activity that was going on in the main house, right?
Correct. Well, they would have there was this cupboard in there, or closet, whichever you want to call it, and it had actually an eye hook on the inside and the outside. Just the layout, the vibe, it just was quite strange. They would have like fingerprints that would keep appearing in the mirrors when they'd wipe them down. You'd actually hear things. Actually, when we first moved in there, the garage that was connecting to the cabin, we actually found a noose, which I thought was kind of strange. My dad had to help me get rid of it because there was just some major energy coming off of it. And every time I went to grab it, there's something telling me don't touch it. There's something attached to it. And even at some point, he was carrying it around in his truck, and he said he felt the emergency that he had to dump it as well because it was giving him bad luck and things like that when he was driving around. But yeah, there was a lot of, the dogs didn't want to go in there. There was weird smells. Things would be missing. They would show up in the cupboard, whether it was keys or just simple little things. She'd be looking for them and couldn't find them, and then they'd show up in the closet later. Yeah, it was just definitely, it was more negative, I would say, in the cabin for sure. I felt safer in the other one, even though most people from the things that I saw, they were like, I don't know how the hell you did it, but you just do what you got to do, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, there was entities walking around in the main house too, and other people that aren't sensitive have actually witnessed it. So
it's not every day you see an entity actually walking around.
Well, I guess not. But gotta get used to it, I guess, right? And yeah, so there was lots of things going on in the cabin. Like one day, one of the kids, she was getting ready for school, but she didn't sleep in there anymore because she was uncomfortable. She'd sleep in the couch in the main house. She went in there, the cupboard was locked because nobody wanted the cupboard open. It was just making people really uncomfortable. So she went in there to get dressed, and she was coming out. All of a sudden, the cupboard was open. A big wind came up. She was trying to frantically get out. She couldn't get out. It took a little while before she did finally get out. She came running in the house, tears and everything, saying that whatever it was trying to keep her inside the actual cabin itself too. So, and she's witnessed things as well. All the kids did when they were in there.
Now, before we get to Peter's part of the investigation, there's a picture that you sent us of like a handprint, which it looks like a slap, right? And it's very distinct. What was that about? How did that happen?
Well, my daughter was sleeping, and she felt a burning when she woke up, and she went to lift up her pajama shirt, and she had this red handprint on her side, which goes with the fact that handprints kept showing up on the mirrors. One of the entities really didn't like women very much, and she was a female, so I'm wondering if maybe that was part and parcel with that as well. Interesting. Now, Peter, I know you're a skeptical investigator, and we've been accused of being very skeptical on this show. What did you kind of find there, and how much did all this activity stand out for you?
Place was fucking nuts.
That is one good way to sum it up.
Let's talk about the main house first of all. So when Charmain, the very first visit we had there, we had like 3 or 4 visits there. Charmain went through the list of things that happened. First thing was that there were allegedly you could hear footsteps walking across the deck. And usually in our investigators' minds, that kind of thing, you think expansion and contraction and stuff like that. It was in the proximity of an east-west facing side of the building, so that there would have been sun there at some point, and it would have obviously creaked and expanded as the night went on. But what was interesting when we were there, you could actually we actually captured the sound of the walking across the deck, and it wasn't that creaking expansion and contraction noise. It was like toe to heel walking across the deck, and you can actually hear the noise transfer from the back end of the bedroom to where the deck was, and you could in your own mind you could hear that transfer going all the way across the deck until it got to the side of the door. That's when it stopped. Another thing as well, which is kind of more focused on the outside as well, there was some carvings on the post outside which resembled some old witchcraft symbols, which backdate to the ban, which is like it's a very old witchcraft symbols, and that was also there as well, which was interesting. It might have been just coincidental that they resembled it, but one of the translation was on the front end of a deck was the door. So whatever that meant in relation to what went on there, we don't know for sure. Also, as well, the bedroom part of the house was actually brought over from Duncan, BC. So that whole section of the house was brought over, and that was the centre of focus of the dogs. Like the dogs were one of the dogs was keenly focused on the doorway, which we managed to validate the dog's account by taking that one particular picture of that image walking through the doorway. The story about that was I think that was the second or third investigation, and I was actually setting up the cameras, and Charmain was on the right-hand side of the picture. And because my cameras are set on motion, it goes off when I'm trying to set things up and stuff like that. And that was one of the random shots that I took during that time. It didn't go off any time else in the investigation. But what's distinctive about the picture is that it looks like somehow the guy's wearing a hoodie, which is fine. That could mean anything. But it's the actual haircut style as well. It's kind of like what perceived to me is like there's a guy with a bald around the outside, and he's got kind of a patch of hair or kind of a mohawk on top, which was very distinctive, which there was only at that particular time, both myself, Charmain, and her son as well, which was, Nick was about 12 then, was he?
He was very young. Yeah, I want to say somewhere between 10 and 12, and
yeah.
He was on the bed, so nobody was even in that area. We were just setting up, like you said.
So there was that as well, and then also we got there was a bank of EVPs in there as well that we got, but we could also hear people talking in there as well. We never caught it on voice recorders or anything like that. One time, all four of us that were in that one room could hear a conversation between a male and female with our own ears, and it almost sounded like there was a kind of a radio, because it was that fluent in our ears, but it was very silent. And obviously, where Charmain's house is, it's very it's a detached house. It's on its own, and there was no people surrounding it or anything like that. And that was very, very unique for any investigation to hear that, especially at our hearing level as well. So that was that, and then there was there was a log cabin as well, which was kind of a little bit more malicious, I would say, not negative or anything like that. I wouldn't say there was Satan in there or there was like devil in there or anything like that, but it was a bit more you kind of got that feeling when you walked in there of that you shouldn't be in there, and it wasn't because of the deco or anything like that, and it was fairly dated. No disrespect to you, Charmain, it was a very dated cabin, and it looked like last time it was decorated was probably in the early 80s, that kind of thing, so it had that kind of appearance to it as well. Again, in there we were hearing voices. We were actually hearing voices again with our own ears of what sounded like a man or a young a kind of a young adult talking, and it was more kind of pointed towards that wardrobe area. One particular time we was in the bedroom area of the log cabin, and there was me, two other fellow investigators as well. And one of my investigators, Chris, was getting a bit frustrated because nothing was happening, because he's a young kid and, he wants to see, things spinning and stuff like that. And he prompted a response, like a physical response. And at that particular time, by the kitchenette, as you walked into the actual bedroom area, there was a pile of coins, and one of those coins actually physically flew at him from the table side and landed right in front of him. And so that was very, very significant for us. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen or witnessed anything like that in probably since I've been back in the UK, like a physical movement to that extent. Also as well, in the wardrobe as well, there was me and another investigator from another team in there, and it was at the time, I think it was the back end of the winter, and I think it was one of our first investigations there, because we were all wearing coats and hoodies and stuff like that, and there was me and another investigator in there, and we were just talking, we were just asking basic questions, and the co-investigator asked if there's anyone there, can you please touch me? Which that's not typically something I ask. And then I felt almost straight away that like a rubbing sensation at the back of my head. So I moved in, and I could feel my hoodie digging in, because I had a hoodie on the coat. And I just thought, is that? So I actually stepped back towards one side, and I took a picture with my camera, which was directly by the side of us. And one of the other pictures that I shared with you as well, Jason, there's actually a black silhouette of a man's face, or a young adult's face, right by the side of where I was sitting, and adjacent to where the other investigator was as well. There was a bank of EVPs out there as well. A lot of it was, to summarize, was that it was malicious in the fact that whatever was in there didn't want us in there. There was no physical harm while we were there done to us, but it was that kind of, with the responses we got with EVPs and the physical response, it was to me very active.
So in the end, guys, what ended up happening? Like, Charmain, you eventually moved, but not right away after these investigations, right?
No, I was there for 4 years, and eventually I did move because it was just time for a new chapter and a lot of things were happening. But when we did try and move, the house was even pretty alive with a lot of things there too. Like the bedroom back door, the lock was broken off of it, for example. So I just put a dresser in front of it so people couldn't come in and out. And when it came to moving day, we had a friend come in and he was moving a TV out of there. And he actually got really angry at us. He's like, well, who the hell locked me out? Blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to get back in there. I'm like, actually, there's no lock on the door. So whatever it was preventing him from coming back in. And then that's when my boyfriend, the dog came running out for some weird reason, because he's lived there for 4 years as well. He came running out of the house, wouldn't get out of my boyfriend's car. And I'm like, yeah, just go give him some cookies and, he'll be okay. He goes in the house to bring him some cookies. He literally saw an apparition go from the bedroom to the bathroom. And he's like, fuck this shit. Puts the dog in the car and he peels out of there. So there was a lot more things going on. Even in the cabin, when he did the last load, he heard like a chickmunk voice. He doesn't know what it said. But again, he said, to hell with this, and just kind of, we never went back after that. But I do have dreams about the house, weirdly enough. So I do believe that there's some connection there for sure. And I remember in one of the EVPs, it was actually saying there was something about me that reminded one of the entities of somebody. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's why I was kind of accepted there. Because the people before us, there was a lot of stuff left. So they just kind of got up and left. But I could have totally stayed there. I was quite content in the weirdness of it. So, which is you don't hear that a lot, so it's kind of nice to hear that. Like, if you look at Hollywood, it's always like the family runs screaming and the evil's vanquished. And Peter, this is something too. You as a group, you didn't go in there and kind of exorcise the place or anything like that, did you? You just provided evidence, right, Peter?
No, the only thing we got as far as exercising was one of the other teams that joined us on that. He actually ran out at one point. That's the only exercising we did at that particular time. Not mentioning any names, but it was kind of, try not to laugh at that time. It wasn't that bad, put it that way. But in relation to like an investigation, typically what we do as investigators, we try and put bits of puzzles together. There was so many variables involved with that house, like with what Charmain was saying as well. There was a lot of kind of literature in there as well, and there was a lot of dark literature in there as well. So that could be a part of it as well. And you just don't know. I mean, we could still be there now. I mean, over almost a decade ago, still putting bits of the puzzle together and still not having a clue exactly what was going on there. But honestly, for that kind of selfish, thrill-seeking side of me that wants to have that, that experience, that place was pretty crazy for me.
Yeah, I think there was definitely a portal somewhere around there, because there was just too many things coming in and out, and some were kind and some were not so kind. Yeah. And, yeah.
It was a lot of it as well, like hearing the conversations going on in the house as well. It's almost as if, without putting a theory to it or anything like that, it was almost as if there was another dimension there actually watching us talking to them, because of the conversation was like the way that the conversation, if memory serves me correctly, was phrased is they were looking at us. And and it wasn't just Jack and Mary talking to each other about what they're going to be doing at the weekend. It was them actually engaging on what we were doing as well, and they were talking about us sitting there and talking about us asking questions as well. It's
interesting too, because Harrison's an area very rife with Sasquatch sightings as well, right? Like it's a very much like a little its own little paranormal hotspot. So I find that all very fascinating.
Definitely. I hear when I was living there was a lot I've heard from other neighbors, even the places I worked at. I believe the hot springs being native land. I think the fact that there's wood factors, it's just screaming, hey, come on over.
The street that actually Charmain lived on, there's cottages on the street as well, wasn't there, to rent?
Yeah, and I've actually heard some stuff with people that have lived in there, and they had some experiences too.
They actually contacted me when I was a part of the when I was running VPS about activity that was going on in there as well, and it's just it's a hot bin. That whole area is. Even spiritually as well, when you walk around there's a certain energy to it, and it's definitely ripe for activity, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I'd do it again,
a road
though.
Trip.
I know. It's I've got some ideas about that. Probably going to pursue that one day. Well,
Charmain, thanks for coming on and chatting with us about your experience. Peter, thanks for sharing your side of the story. I mean, it's a fascinating one, and I'm really glad that we could talk about it here on Hunting the Haunted.
It was nice meeting you.
You as well. Peter and I'll be back next month with an all-new investigation to dissect. Until then, I'm Jason Hewlett.
And I'm Peter Renn. Stay spooky.